Your presence and energy is amazing this morning. I love it. That thing that you just did of stepping into and talking about what's going to make you successful, I want you to talk about that even more. Does your wife or your husband or your partner or your lover or your friends, do they know what's going to make you successful? Have you ever shared it with them? It's so weird. We don't talk about success enough. We're kind of like, oh, I don't want to be, I don't want to tell them how I'm going to, make my millions of dollars. They might think it's weird. No, millionaires talk a lot about their success. They talk a lot about their philosophies, Jeffrey talked about yesterday. They talk a lot about their dreams, as Marcia talked about yesterday. It's part of their parlance, and that's why they're living it. You live what you speak. You live what you say. And if you're not talking about your dreams and your successes and what will make you a successful person and what you believe will make the world a better place, you're never going to live in a more successful or better place. How many follow? Say yes. You got to have that. If you're not speaking the positive parts about your life, the dreams, the ambitions, the hopes, the joys, if you're not speaking about the dreams, if you're not speaking about the money, then all of it is not real. It's in your head. We want to put that success socially. We want you to share who you are and what you're about, what your dreams are. Everyone should be around you, should know what makes you successful. Everyone around me knows what makes me, quote unquote, successful because I talk about it on stage with my family and friends. They get it. They get it. We want your success to live out there again. Where? Out there. To really have you out there again. Right? To talk, to share, to express. That's what's going to make you feel successful. You all follow? So this morning, I wanted to have someone come and talk to you about business success. Talk to you about, well, what is it that makes people extraordinarily successful? I mean extraordinary, and not by just opinion, by fact, by data, by knowledge, by perspective. Someone who lives their life in the success category. That's what they do. That's what they know. It's someone who shares for a living with the top levels of CEOs around the world what will make them more successful. And when he talks about it, it's not just like, oh, this is what I think. He's got, as his platform, probably the most amount of data and access to the world's most successful persons than anyone I've ever met. Because that's his role, that's his job, and that's his life, is living in how do you make people more successful. So I could go on and on to introduce this person. He's a dear friend, someone I trust wildly, and I talk all the time with about what makes people feel successful. What is it that makes it? Because he's always talking about it. He lives there. He lives there. And today, he's going to get you to living there. I'll let a little quick video introduce him. Someone I know, trust, and completely adore. And this morning, you're in for a treat. You didn't know he's here. He's going to blow your mind. Roll it.
There's an accident on the freeway that has your body in just 12 to 80 chances.
Just call now and they'll ship you out.
That's right, 2 massive explosions just west of that park. Well, guess what? Also raising levels of which in turn not having to come to make your body
There are 3 suspects now wanted. No one seems to have predicted this, so it's hard to know where it's heading. Chances are that if that report comes up.
It's time to take back control of your mind so that you can take back your life. What controls your attention controls your life.
For an ambitious entrepreneur, this is your time of greatest opportunity.
The national economy, what's going on in world affairs,
does not have to become your personal reality.
let others lead small lives, but not you.
Have it be said of you that you did the best you could with what you had.
Now is the time to do something different. No matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future.
I'm telling you, the beliefs that you have about your potential, the beliefs of what you can and can't do, what you're good at and not good at, are made up. My challenge to you is this: make now your turning point. This moment. What you have accomplished so far is only a fraction of what's truly possible for you. You are far more powerful, capable, and gifted than you allow yourself to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, publisher of Success Magazine, Darren Hardy.
Morning. Thank you. Save some of that for the end. I just hope I don't change your opinion. That was very nice. Thank you, Brennan, for those wonderful words out in the introduction as well. So I'm delighted to be here. As I told Brennan, I don't do a lot of these for a lot of the guys that sort of travel within this space, but I'm always delighted to come and speak on Brennan's stage, because I've learned through my own personal experiences of having gone to his events that it's credible, it's worthy, and there's a delivery of great insights. So delighted to be here. What I want to do first off is to clear up one of the greatest myths that I hear about why people aren't more successful in life. I get a chance to talk to a lot of people, and they tell me all the reasons why they are where they're at and why they're not more successful. So I want to sort of kind of clear that one out first thing before we do a deep dive into some of the other greater success principles. First off, how many people here have had, you had a nice, normal, happy childhood? How many? Can I see your hands? Oh, well, good for you. My childhood sucked. My parents divorced when I was only 18 months old, and my mother didn't want me, so she just handed me over to my father. As a matter of fact, when she first heard from the doctor that she was pregnant, her response was anger. And then after I was born, she was generally just disinterested. She was just one of those mothers or women that just never really wanted to be a mother. And so thankfully for me, she admitted it to herself and just sort of handed me over to my father. So my father, when I was born, was only 23 years of age at the time as well. And they just moved from the hometown of San Francisco Bay Area here to what seemed like the middle of nowhere, Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he took a job being an underpaid, overworked university football coach. And it was just he and I out there by ourselves alone. And this was sort of his parenting philosophy. He just sort of shoved me in the corner of a couch, barricaded me with pillows, put headphones on my head to try to keep me quiet. And you see the stunned look I have on my face. I had that most of my childhood. And to say that my father wasn't the nurturing type is almost comical. It was well known around our household. You just sort of had to fend for yourself. I actually think this is my sister here, who is in the audience today as well. And my father, he was an alpha male, muscle-bound, loud, gregarious guy. We used to affectionately call him a Neanderthal. If you've never seen The Missing Link, this is what one looks like. And my father, he parented like he coached, which meant there was a lot of yelling, no excuses, no whining, no crying, lots of expletives. And how many people remember the movie Full Metal Jacket? Okay, my father was Sergeant Gunnery, except for in 1970 football shorts. And he was infamous for one of his coaching philosophies, and that was no matter how hurt a player got on the field, they were not allowed to come out of the game. Well, one time this linebacker just gets creamed in the middle of the field, wobbles to the sideline, begs my dad to take him out of the game, and my dad grabs him by the face mask and yells at him, "Not unless you're showing bone!" And he pulled his shoulder pad back, and out from his neck skin was sticking his collarbone. And so every time either one of us kids were sick and we asked to stay home from school, from the other side of the house he would yell, "Not unless you're showing bone." And so we'd have to drag our sorry asses back out to school. Well, when I was only 4 years of age, he married my stepmonster. I did not mispronounce that. And they went on to have 2 other children, one of which is in the audience here today. And because I was of the other woman, she did everything she possibly could to try to ostracize me from the family. So I was literally the redheaded stepchild. And you can also see that my father cut my hair. which I think I suffer more emotional trauma from than anything else of my childhood. Now, because of this dysfunctional upbringing is the reason why I stand here today before you as the very functioning achiever. The reason being is because I had to get over these issues of abandonment is the reason why I'm vigorously self-reliant. Because I had a Neanderthal University football coach as a father is the reason why I'm so self-motivated and driven. Because in our household you had to achieve in order to get any attention or love in our household is the reason why I am so goal-oriented and achievement-minded. See, these were the muscles that I developed through this childhood. You know how you build a muscle, right? You put stress on it over and over again. You're stressing it, you're straining it. What you're actually doing is tearing the muscle fibers. You're actually breaking them down, and then in rest and recovery, it grows back bigger than it was before. That's how you build muscle. Well, these were the muscles that I built through my childhood that, in my opinion, give me the opportunity to do the extraordinary things that ordinary people can't do. So I guess my first message to you this morning is I hope your childhood sucked too. And that you understand that your adversity is your advantage. That your past, you haven't accumulated wounds that you need to heal from, but you've actually developed muscles that give you the ability to do the extraordinary things ordinary people can't do. My mentor, Jim Rohn, put it this way. He says, most people look at their past and their childhoods as a billy club that they keep beating themselves over the head with. Instead, look at it as the training ground, the development process that you've gone through that allows you to do the extraordinary things ordinary people just can't do. So that's the first message. Now, what I've come here to talk to you about this morning is how to ignite the compound effect. So this is a book that has become, that I wrote, and I'll tell you why I wrote it here in just a second, and it has done fantastic things all over the world, but I want to talk to you about how to ignite some of those key principles and turn it into a system that you can apply that once acted on can really have transformational results in your life. So the first thing is I get asked all the time, why did I write this book? Does the world truly need another personal development book? And the answer is no. But this is at the founding of Success Magazine, and when I looked around at the world around us, the reason why I sat down to write this book was because I was pissed off. I think there's a real injustice happening in our society, in our culture, where we are constantly being bombarded with ever-increasingly sensational claims to get rich, get fit, get younger, get sexier, all overnight with very little effort for only 3 easy payments of $39.95. And these sensational messages are distorting the truth of what it really takes to earn success. And I was tired of watching people being tricked, fooled, and bamboozled. Because if you have a sincere interest to find out what it really takes to become more successful, you're constantly being solicited and tempted with these sensational claims, and it's distracting and derailing people continually. So what I wanted to do was clear the clutter, demystify the truth, bring us back to the basics, back to the core fundamentals of what it really takes to earn success. And first off, there's no silver bullet, there's no magic pill, and for God's sakes, people, there's no frickin' secret that's been buried for 2,000 years by some covert society, only revealed for worldwide revelation recently, that allows you to sit on your couch and just imagine checks coming into your mailbox. Are you me? Seriously? You go on about that too much longer, and they will come and take your couch. And you, in a white jacket, off to a safe place where you can't injure others. There is no secret. Let me give you the secret. Here's the secret that has been long forgotten, not 2,000 years, but maybe the last 20 to 40 years, and that is success is earned by hard frickin' work. That's how success is earned. And it's become a secret because we've been tempted by marketing gimmickry that it's something other than hard frickin' work. But that's what it takes to earn success. So here's the truth about the process of earning success. It is mundane. When you go back to your offices, to your marketplace, the things that you will have to do to become successful are mundane. And they are unexciting. This is not something you're going to want to film for reality TV, trust me. And they are unsexy. It's not something you're going to want to put on the cover of a new product package. And it is laborious. At times it is downright frustrating, if not defeating, sometimes demoralizing. But see, that doesn't make for interesting books or exciting infomercials or riveting movies. So instead, we are paraded with these images otherwise about what it takes or what the stories are or what the epic journeys are to becoming successful. But it's not true. So I ask you first off this morning is to stop looking for the quick fix for happiness and wealth. Now, a lot of you inside go, yeah, okay, I get it. But a lot of times I'll do these book signings afterwards and like, okay, so that was really great, really moving, but just give me one key tip of what it really takes. I'm like, I already gave it to you. Like I could stop now and we're done. It's hard freaking work is what it really is. Now I'll give you some directional guidance to sort of try to help you streamline your path towards your goals. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not going to be easy and it's going to be difficult. And it's through a minefield of troubled, difficult, failure, rejection, painful experiences. And then the other side of that is phenomenal, fantastic joy, celebration, and abundance. But that's the roadmap. Success is earned one single day at a time. One step at a time. In the midst of a day, one single step through your day at a time. One decision at a time. All those little ones along the way. One phone call at a time. One phone call could be transformational. One single meeting, that meeting you didn't want to go to, but you decide to go to anyway. And you can never own success. You can never stand here on the stage and say, I've arrived. You never can own it. It's unownable to have success. You can only rent it, and the rent is due every single day. How many people here have, you've been to a seminar before like this, or you've read a book, or you got a CD or DVD program, and on the back it said, 90 days, transformational results, your life will never be the same again. How many people went to one of those seminars, or read those books, or listened to those CD programs, and in 90 days your life did not transform at all? Anybody? Okay. Let me tell you why. Here's why. You're being distributed all sorts of incredible information. You're being downloaded phenomenal knowledge, but it's not what you know. Knowledge is not power. That is a myth truth. It's what you do with what you know. Action is the only thing that is ultimately going to determine your success. Because see, I know a lot of broke geniuses. My brother-in-law is a PhD in history. One of the smartest guys, the smartest guy I know. The guy knows something about everything, and legitimately, not just a tell-all, but he legitimately knows something about everything. Incredibly brilliant guy, but he'll be 50 this year, drives a 24-year-old car, lives with his mother. Nice guy, but he's broke. Unapplied knowledge, and those are the outcomes. Or, this is one I love here by Newsweek. These are the people that go to school, are academically trained, and dispense the advice about how poor nutrition and lack of exercise will kill you, and 44% of doctors are yet overweight. Or, as the philosopher Morpheus said, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And then Samuel Johnson. So I'm going to go through some key fundamental success principles here. And the one thing that I don't want you to say inside your head is this: oh, I already know that. Instead, I want you to ask yourself the question, am I doing that? And then, have I mastered that? And then, does my waistline prove that I've mastered that? Does my wallet prove that I've mastered that? Does my business success currently prove that I've mastered that? Do my relationships, do my children, does my marriage, do my friend, neighbor relationships prove that I have mastered every one of these principles? And if the answer to that is, well, maybe not just yet, then there is something yet to be reminded, maybe pulled back into the archives of your mind, which you already do know, brought to the front, given an action plan that you actually do something with, and now the results actually can be transformational. So what I consider the principles of the compound effect are are the underlying foundation to which all success is built on top of. So it's kind of like this. You could have the world's greatest software, where tens of millions of dollars have been invested by the greatest engineers, and you've created this world-class software. But if you install this world-class software on a faulty operating system, what happens? It's buggy, it crashes, it doesn't perform to its potential. And a lot of people mistakenly go, this crappy software doesn't work. Just like you read a book or you go to a seminar, and you get the information and you install it, but if it's installed on a crappy operating system, it will be buggy, it will crash, and it will not work. But if we can finally get the operating system dialed in, rewire the code so that the operating system is operating at its full potential, now we can install the leadership or the selling or the enterprise building or the negotiation or the parenting software on top of it, and maybe this time, for the first time, it actually will perform to its capacity. So that's what we're about as we go through this process. So my goal is this, to provide you a system that will enable you to achieve goals you were too afraid to even imagine possible. Brendan told me about the homework assignment he gave you last night. And a lot of you did some dreaming. But I want you to step those up. And I think you will step them up if you can see tangibly how you could achieve them. The reason why people don't have big goals is because they just think it's fantastical. It's too far out of their reach. They don't see a pathway to achieving it, and so they just think it's unrealistic. What I want you to do is rewire that and go, okay, wow, for the first time, I get how I actually could achieve this thing that I thought was impossible before. So a year or 3 years from now, when we look back at you, you are totally unrecognizable to the person you are right now. You are unrecognizable to your spouse, to your partner, to your neighbors, and most importantly, you are unrecognizable to your banker. That's my goal, to provide you the system that will enable you to do just that. We're going to be doing a working session here. I don't need to tell a lot of you. You're part of this group. You're used to digging in and doing the work. So obviously suggest you take notes. There'll be some things we won't be able to cover together, so I'll suggest some homework assignments. I'll show you where you can download some free resources. I'm going to go through like 200 slides. So instead of trying to get everything that's going to be on each one of these slides, I'll show you where you can get the whole slide deck sent to you, so you can just pay attention to the key items on the slide. You like that? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. And then, by the way, I've just tried this new app where I'm recording myself simultaneously. So if it works, I'll also give you the whole recording of what we're doing right now. So we'll see. No promises. You know how these apps work. So, and then also where you might be able to find some more information inside the book as well. All right. So here's what it's all about. Between where you're at right now and your goal stands this operating system. And it doesn't matter what your goal is. It could be to build a fantastic business. It could be to buy a new car, send your children to university, retire your parents. It doesn't matter. But between you and the goal is this operating system. So what I want to do is to give you the lines of code that you need to rewire your own operating system with that will enable you to get to the other side. So we all come into this world exactly the same. Naked, scared, and ignorant. Now, some of us come in a little uglier than the rest. You saw my baby photo. But after this grand entrance, there's only one thing. If you asked me to boil down the principles of success into one thing, what is the one control factor for every outcome of your life? What's the one thing that determines whether you end up living here or whether you end up living here? If we all come in naked, scared, and ignorant, and then after that grand entrance, one thing would determine whether you end up driving this or whether you end up driving this. What's that one thing? The one thing that determines whether at the end of 50, 60 years you end up broke, despondent, alone, bitter, and divorced, or whether you end up with a marriage of magic and great intimacy and connection. There's only one thing that determines whether you get to send your children to the greatest universities in the world, or no matter what they qualified for and earned their way into, they can't go because you can't afford it. Only one thing determines whether your parents at the end of their life run out of money, now they're desperate, or whether you can hand them the keys, pay off their mortgage, and retire them comfortably. Only one thing determines whether you get to contribute to the charity of your choice to your greatest heart's extent, travel the world in great luxury. As Curly said, it's just the one thing. So what is it? If we're to boil down all the principles of success, all the outcomes in your life right now, what's the one thing? Choices. Right now, you sit there in that chair as the accumulated effect of all the choices you've made up till now. After your grand entrance of naked, scared, and ignorant, you have made a series of choices, and all those choices have added up right now to your waistline, right now to your wallet, right now to the intimacy or lack thereof of the relationships in your life. You are nothing but the accumulated, compounded effect of all the choices you've made since you were born to where you're at right now. So the first line of code, if we're going to change the trajectory of your life, we're going to send you in a stratosphere you didn't even imagine possible before. We have to go right down to below the atom level, to the nucleus, and that are your choices. So then you might ask, what choices? Because we're constantly faced with choices. Is it the big life choices? Where do I go to college? Who do I marry? What job do I take? What career track? That's what a lot of people think, that their life is an outcome of all these sort of like big, defining moment choices. Well, how many people here have ever been bitten by an elephant? Anybody? How many people have been bitten by a mosquito? See, nature provides clues, right? It's the little things in life that will bite you. See why I'm not a comic? Stick to the success principles here. So I'm asked often, there are 7 billion people on the planet. We only get to choose 12 people to appear on the cover of Success magazine. 12 out of 7 billion. So then the question becomes, what did these people do to create those extraordinary results? What did they do? Because if you could figure out what they did, you could do the same, and you too could find yourself 12 of 7 billion people on the planet. So let me tell you, there are myths about what people believe that these people did to get on the cover of Success magazine. Let me clear the myths out first. Success is not a result of heroic feats. These people did not do anything heroic by comparison to anybody else. They are also not a result of grand acts of bravery. Do not leap and learn to fly on the way down. That doesn't work out very well. I'm not a believer of leap and the net will appear. No. It does not require grand acts of bravery to end up to become extraordinary successful. Not quantum leaps. It's not something, where overnight success. You find anybody on the cover of Success magazine, anybody with any extraordinary success, even though it appears like it was almost overnight, I'll show you why it appears that way here in just a second, it has nothing to do with any sort of great quantum leap. Success, however, is a result of small, seemingly insignificant, moment-to-moment choices. And I want to prove that to you in a variety of ways here. So let me present you with small choices like, at lunch, do you order the hamburger and fries, or do you order the salad? Doesn't look like a life-altering choice. Small choices like, at the end of a hard day's work, do you stop by the gym and put in a few crunches, or do you rush home to catch Dancing with the Stars or American Idol or watch other people living out their dreams? In the heat of a battle, do you decide to hold your ground, not give in, not say you're sorry, or do you choose to say you're sorry and make a moment of magic? Small little choices like, in a networking event, there's somebody you want to meet, but you're a little intimidated to do so. Do you walk across and introduce yourself anyway, or do you hunker down and not do so? Small little choices like, at the end of the day, do you put in a few more phone calls, or do you just call it a day? All these small little choices that accumulate out throughout the day. These small choices add up to big results. Those people you see on the cover of Success magazine were just more disciplined and consistent with all those little tiny choices all along the way, and then it added up to gargantuan results. Let me prove it to you. If I gave you the option of a penny, a single penny that doubles every day for 31 days, or $1 million in cash right now, how many people would pick the $1 million in cash? Okay, tough crowd. All right. Let me sweeten the deal. Penny, doubles for 31, or $2 million in cash. How many people take $2 million now? All right. There's going to come a time when this math's going to work against you here, so figure when that is. All right, $3 million in cash, or the penny. How many people pick the $3 million in cash? Okay, a few more converts. Let's say, since we're talking about small choices, which was a clue, you picked a penny. And your buddy picked the $3 million in cash. Let's see how this works out mathematically. So you have the penny. At the end of 5 days, your penny's worth 16 cents, and your buddy's got $3 million partying like a rock star. You're not feeling very good about your choice thus far. Now we go to day 10, and your penny has added up to something less than a Happy Meal at McDonald's, and their champagne and caviar jetting around the world with their $3 million in cash. Day 20, your pennies turned into $5,242. They got $3 million in cash, laughing all the way to the bank. However, on day 31, your single penny, doubling every day, is turned into $10,737,000. Now, a couple of keys here. The math between day 1 and day 2 is exactly the same math between day 30 and day 31. It is the same increment of choice improvement. This is the reason why Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Because all of a sudden it looks like these gargantuan results come from seemingly out of nowhere. But it is just the accumulated compound effect of math, or in success principles language, consistency of discipline compounding and making its results visible. Let me make this more practical for you. Let's take 3 friends. And they're all starting out about the same. They all graduated from the same 4-year university. They all moved out to the suburbs. They've been married for 5 years. They put on 5 years of that husband marriage flab that, you know, a lot of guys do. They both have 2.2 children, white picket fence, the whole thing. They got a job making $50,000 a year. All starting out the same. Now let's say that Scott here picks up a copy of Success Magazine. He's like, hey, some of these things are pretty cool. I think I might just try out some of these things. So here's what Scott does to start making some small little choice changes. He reads 10 pages of a good book a day. So instead of getting up in the morning and reading the newspaper and finding out about all the crime and criminals and disasters and scandal and gossip, he decides to pick up a good book and something inspirational, something instructional, and he just reads 10 pages in the morning. On the way to the office, instead of putting on the drive time yak radio, reaffirming all the disasters, murders, and scandals, he puts on an instructional CD, something inspirational, something instructional, something to just sort of nourish and feed his mind. And he decides to cut out 125 calories a day. That's half a candy bar, small bowl of cereal. Okay, no big crash diet going on here. He drinks 2 bottles of water a day. He takes 2,000 steps a day, which means he just parks at the back of the parking lot. No big deal. He makes a few more phone calls before calling it a day, and he makes his weekly date night a priority. Okay, that's all. Now, how many people here, truly, if this is all you had to do to become significantly successful, how many people think they could do Scott's plan? Okay, right? You could do Scott's plan, Scott? Good. I see Scott there in the audience. Good. It's a clue. Yeah. All right, now Larry's just going to keep doing what Larry's always done and expecting different results, right? Status quo. Now Brad's just going to start slipping, like we all have done, like we see happening all around us. Start making some poor, slightly not great choices. Here's what Brad's going to do. He's going to munch on a little junk food around the office. You know those chocolate-covered pretzels at the end of the secretary's desk, right? A handful of the chocolate-covered peanuts. You know, no big deal. He's going to miss a couple of workouts a week. He's going to drink more Diet Coke than water, God forbid. He's going to move around a little less. He's going to skip a prospecting call or two, and he's going to give the cold shoulder to the spouse a couple of times throughout the week. Again, we're not going to call Jerry Springer to film the inside of his household. No big deal stuff. But let's just see how this works out. 5 months down the road, Scott's reading every morning, listening to instructional CD. The results are exactly the same. No difference whatsoever. 10 months down the road, exactly the same. Now, Scott's getting a little perturbed. He's like, he sees his buddies sloughing off, having a great time, munching on food, not going to the gym, what have you, not having to do this damn weekly date night, and their results are exactly the same. So Scott's feeling a little frustrated, but he decides to kind of keep it going. 20 months down the road, slight, ever so slight, Brad's just sort of feeling it in the belt a little bit, right? A little apathy sort of set in at home. There's a little tension at the office. But again, no big deal changes between the three of them. At 27 months alone, though, however, the differences are dramatic. Let me show it to you statistically. So Scott, 27 months later, has read 47 books on success and achievement, just reading 10 pages 5 days a week. He's listened to 465 hours of instructional and inspirational audio over 27 months. Is that going to have some sort of impact in his life? This 125 calories that he saved out of his diet, he's lost 33.5 pounds. When I interviewed Dr. Oz, he said, we can end obesity in America today if everybody just cut 125 calories out of their diet. That's it. Doesn't require a crash diet. Doesn't require nutritional science and all the rest of this. 125 calories. He's drank 3,700 gallons of water. He's walked 900 miles. 124 date nights with the wife. Now, I had photos for that, but I just decided to go with X's and O's. This couple extra calls, he made 1,860 extra calls he wouldn't have made at a 3% close ratio, which means he's learned nothing from the 465 audios and the 47 books. He's added $279,000 on top of his $50,000 a year income. Slight little positive choices along the way. Now, Larry's been treading water, falling a little further behind, becoming disenchanted, bored, apathetic, passionless, disengaged. This is where most of our society is living right now. They're not falling off a cliff. They're not setting the world on fire. They're just doing what they've always done and falling a little bit further behind and getting more pissed off about it. That's all. And then we've got Brad. These slight little poor choices along the way. His 125 calories extra a day means he's added 33.5 pounds. Those couple of workouts that he missed, the Diet Coke instead of the water, more weight gain. Now he's in danger of cardiac arrest. Missed a few meetings, missed a few phone calls. Now he's in business and financial emergency. This inattention and cold shoulder to the spouse. Either apathy has set up or he's on the brink of divorce. Small, poor choices compounded over time is how people get to these crisis outcomes. By the way, here's how you can get it, the slides. So all you do is you just text that phone number with your name and email address. That's it. So the number is 510-296-6208. Just put your name and your email address, and then it will send you a link to go and download the whole slide deck. And then maybe this audio as well. We'll see. Okay, if you didn't get it fast enough, it's over in the left-hand corner, and I'll keep flying. So why, if it's so easy, if it seems so easy to make positive choices, why do people continue to make poor choices? There are 4 traps that we face, and I want to give you these traps because you will be faced with these exact traps that will keep you from being able to stay on a course of making positive choices. So here they are. Number 1, while you are making positive choices or poor choices, the results are invisible. So it's easy to get faked out. You think that the choices you're making right now don't matter. Now, I could completely change this for you if I could take the space-time continuum and collapse it. You make a choice right here today, and then we go out 20 years, and I could show you the outcome of that choice and collapse it and show it to you right now. You would instantly start making different choices. The problem is this space-time continuum between choice and outcome. So if you, upon taking a bite of your first hamburger and fries, your gut exploded, you had to grab your chest and fall down in a heart attack, or let's say upon your first meal with a hamburger and fries, the next morning you woke up like this, would you eat another hamburger? Probably not. Now, how do you get like that? One hamburger at a time. That's all. Well, let's just say the first time you take a puff of a cigarette, you have a cigarette, you put it out, you're like, I feel pretty good, because you probably breathed deeply for the first time in a long time. Feels pretty good, right? But let's say the next morning you woke up like this. Would you have another cigarette? Or let's just say, you're a young guy, and it looks pretty cool. Your friends think you're cool smoking a cigarette. Like, this kid looks like James Dean here, right? I mean, nothing but positive affirmation at this point. But let's say we could take the space-time continuum and collapse it and take his future self and communicate to his boy self. This is what will happen one single cigarette at a time. Or let's just say one day you decide, I don't want to make these extra phone calls today. I got to pick up the laundry, the kids, I have a headache. I just don't want to do it today. I'll make up for it tomorrow. But the first day you don't make your extra calls and your house is up on foreclosure, would you make the calls tomorrow? Or let's just say in the heat of the battle, like, tonight I just don't feel like going there. I'm just not giving in. I'm just not doing it tonight. And you decide to hold your ground in the midst of an argument. But the next morning, you wake up to divorce papers, and you've got to look your little girl in the eye and explain why you couldn't make the right choice. If we can close this space-time continuum and show you the exact outcome of this choice right now, today, you would, in fact, make different choices. See, what happens here is every single choice has a butterfly effect in your life. You've heard of the butterfly effect, right? Butterfly flaps its wings somewhere else on the planet, there's a tsunami. Same thing with your choices. These small little choices you're making, somewhere else in your life down the road is a tsunami of outcome, both positive as well as negative. Now, I'm not saying you got to be dogmatic about everything you do. Yeah, your grandmother was right, everything in moderation. But you need to know that on that cheat day, those choices are still having a butterfly effect in your life. There is no cheat day for the compound effect. There is no respite. Everything has a consequence, both positive and negative, in outcome over time. So the answer to this is you have to have patience. As you start making some of these positive choices and you don't see any differences in results, it could become frustrating. The answer is you just have to become patient and allow the compound effect to add up, stack up until down the line, it seems to have explosive results. Here's trap number 2. Along the way, it's subtle and deceptive. The compound effect can be subtle and deceptive. Here's what it's like. Imagine you were taking a trip from Los Angeles airport to LaGuardia in New York. And while the plane is on the tarmac, it's pointed directly at LaGuardia. Directly. If the nose of that plane is off only 1 degree, so from here to here, from here to here. Can you see the difference? From here to here, just 1 degree. By the time it gets to its destination, it'll be 150 miles off course. This is how it happens, people. 10 years down the road, and you get here and you go, how did I get so fat? How did I get divorced? How did I end up in bankruptcy? How did my house end up in foreclosure? You could have just been 1 degree off. That's all. And you're 150 miles off course from your goal, from your dreams, from your aspirations. So just like a plane has at the nose of a plane, it has a gyroscope. So no matter what happens along the journey, it readjusts its path. So if there's weather, if there's traffic, if there has to be a course correction, the computer system relocks onto the target. No matter what happens, it relocks onto the target. Well, in the air, there's not a whole lot of obstacles, but on the ground, life is more like this. A double black diamond ski run. You're like, there's the lodge with the hot cocoa and fire. And between me, I could just go straight at it, but it's going to be nothing but elbows and elbows. That's not going to work out, right? So you're going to start straight, and then you're going to get hit with a mogul, and you're going to be pushed to the left. You might not even notice it. And if you don't readjust, you'll ski right off the mountain. So you got to adjust and come back on. And you're going to get hit with another mogul, and it's going to push you off course. But you have to readjust and reconnect with your target. And it's going to be rocky and bumpy. And as you start to make positive choices, you're going to fall off the wagon. The key is getting back on and readjusting. So you too need a gyroscope in your life like there is at the nose of a plane. And I'll show you one to provide you one that you can walk out with. Here's the third trap: immediate gratification. As a society, as a culture, we have become addicted to immediate gratification. We want what we want when we want it, and we want it now. And it's become our cultural meme, this impatience. I want to be gratified, pleasured now. And there's no ability to delay gratification. So when faced with this choice, okay, it's the end of dinner, still a little bit hungry, do I have chocolate cake or a glass of water? There's the choice we're faced with all throughout the day, every single day, or a choice like that. So what happens if you choose the chocolate cake? What do you get? Yeah, you get happy. I mean, you get warm, delightful, delicious chocolate cake. That's what you get. You get gratified. You get pleasured. Now, what happens if you choose the glass of water? What do you get? Nothing. Bupkis. That's what you get. Therein lies the problem. That is the base problem of your ability to make positive choices. Because if you make the wrong choice, you are actually satiated. You are actually rewarded. If you make the right choice, you get squat. No recognition, no pleasure, no gratification whatsoever. That is the great conundrum. And we come up through this immediate gratification thing pretty early in life. You can see that. Where we are constantly trying to pleasure ourselves at every turn. And then we are surrounded with solicitations to satisfy our temptations. All day, every day, we are constantly pulled on and tugged on for all of these temptations to gratify ourselves, which is like walking through a minefield of being able to stay on course with your positive choices. So here's the great paradox. What gives us short-term pleasure? The chocolate cake, going home and watching Dances with the Stars, holding your ground in an argument, creates long-term pain. On the other side of that, what gives you short-term pain? Doing the workout, picking up the phone, introducing yourself to somebody you were scared to meet, creates long-term pleasure. And my mentor here, Mr. Jim Rohn, he put it this way. He said, you will suffer one of two pains, which right in there is some fantastic wisdom. And that wisdom is what? You will suffer. Like, get that. This is going to be painful, this process called success in life. But you get to choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Now, as he put it, the pain of discipline weighs ounces. Working out, picking up the phone, saying I'm sorry. But the pain of regret weighs tons. Divorce, bankruptcy, estranged relationships with close family, that weighs tons. I interviewed Jesus. Can you imagine? Donald Trump, we were in front of 25,000 people. I was interviewing him on stage, and he said one thing finally throughout the hour that I thought was good. I'll pass it on to you here. He said, when you're in doubt with what choice to make, just do the thing you don't want to do. That's usually exactly what you should do, which is exactly right. Do I want to work out? I don't want to work out. I probably should work out. Chocolate cake, water. I really want chocolate cake. I really don't want water. Water is what I probably should choose. So if you're going through this conundrum of making choices along the way, whatever it is that you don't want to do is probably exactly the thing that you should do. So let me give you a bonus. This is extra. I'm not charging extra for this. A bonus on little goal achievement, sort of using this principle. Here's what it is. Take each goal that you've got, whatever it is. Build a big successful business, create intimacy in your marriage, whatever it is. Number 2, list what are the things to achieving this goal that I don't want to do. They're either hard or they're difficult or they're scary. Write all those things down. This is a really important exercise, by the way. And then 3, spend 80% of your time doing those things. And you versus all your colleagues, all your peers, will actually achieve more goals than any of them. Because the things that you don't want to do are usually the things that are going to separate you from everyone else in actually achieving those goals. So there's a nice little formula for you. Here's the last trap, number 4. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. So it's easy to eat an apple a day to keep the doctor away. We've heard that all our lives. It's easy to walk around the block for your good health. It's easy to pick a moment once or twice throughout the day to show some affection or some appreciation. It's easy to pick up the phone and call people. It's easy to write thank you letters. It's easy to drink 8 glasses of water a day. All those things are ridiculously easy, but what's the problem? They're also easy not to do. So I have an important question for this intelligent audience. What do successful people and unsuccessful people have in common? Anybody know? Here's what it is. They both hate to do what it takes to be successful. Successful people just do it anyway. Do I like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's still dark outside and cold and leaving the warm embrace of my beautiful bride to strap on running shoes to go pound pavement out in the middle of the morning? I do not. After a long, hard day's work, where I just really want to go and sit on the couch and turn off my brain, do I want to go into a sweaty gym with a bunch of hairy dudes pushing around a bunch of lead iron? I do not. In the heat of a battle with my wife, when I know that I'm right, do I want to say, "You're right, honey, I'm sorry"? I do not. No. But why do I do those things? Because that's what it takes to be successful. So I think for people who are not really successful, I think it's actually liberating to know that successful people hate to do this stuff too. But they just do it anyway. And that's what makes them successful. So don't think like, people who are in great shape, they just love vegetables. They just love to exercise. This person, the reason why it's so great is that they just love prospecting. They love being rejected. It's just fun for them. No. We all hate this stuff. But we just do it anyway, and doing it anyway is what gets us on the other side of the ledger. So let me tell you about the day that changed my life. I was 18 years old. I walked into a seminar very similar to something like this. 18 years old. Never been to a seminar before. And at the front of the room, the lecturer was talking about relationships. And he asked the question, what is the shared percentage between 2 people necessary to make the relationship work? And so I was 18, wise in all the ways of love and marriage, of course. So I stood up and raised my hand and said, 50-50. Everybody's got to be willing to do their part of the deal. Look on his face was evident that that was not the right answer. So somebody else stood up and said, 51-49. Somebody's got to be willing to pull the weight just a little bit further to keep it going. Still not the right answer. Somebody else stood up and said, 80-20. And then they gave some sort of algorithm of how it worked out between 2 people. Still not the right answer. Got tired of asking, went to the whiteboard at the time and simply wrote 100-0. Until you're willing to take 100% responsibility to make the relationship work with 0 expectation in return, will you make the relationship work? Because if you ever give with the expectation to get, you will constantly sabotage the relationship, and it's only a matter of time before it will spiral into oblivion. And then he went on to explain how you are 100% responsible for your life in every circumstance, in every situation, at all times in your life, no matter what. It is not McDonald's fault. It is not Obama's fault. Mitt Romney is not going to change the potential of your future. The only person responsible for every single outcome in every single circumstance is you. 100% of the time. Now, if I asked all of you, how many of you take 100% responsibility for your life, all hands would go up. But if we had a camera on you the past week, that's a nervous laugh. There would be times where I'm sure you would be complaining about the healthcare policy in Washington, or about the weather, or about traffic, or about your neighbor, or about your spouse, or your kids are the reason why you're so mad or upset. Or some other thing outside of yourself of why you are the way you are. But, in fact, you are 100% responsible at every turn. Now let me just explain this in deep because a lot of people don't understand this. So 3 ways you're always 100% responsible for your outcomes. Number 1 is by what you do. Everybody gets that. Hey, I did it, my fault, my bad, I did it, sorry. Everybody gets that one. Okay, I did it. Here's the one people start to miss on. By what you don't do. A lot of times the reason why you aren't where you're at is because you chose not to do the thing you know you should have but didn't. And that's the reason why you're still responsible for the outcomes of your life or this situation at this moment. So that could be a light bulb for some. Now this is the one that really trips people up because I get people to come up to me all the time and go, yeah, but what if you're hit by a bus or you get this debilitating disease or you lose a limb or you fall off a horse or whatever? Well, I get a chance to interview some of the most amazing people on the planet. People who have had the most heinous, tragic, disastrous things happen to them. And they have gone on to live amazing, world-denting, world-affecting lives by this 3rd level of responsibility. And that is how you respond to what's done to you. You are still the owner of responsibility at all times. When you really embrace this, and again, I was 18, and I really got this, like something went on in my brain that said, wow, you mean it doesn't matter what family I came from? It doesn't matter what education I've got, what economy I'm in, where I live. If it's the B, it really is just up to me. Like I can create any outcome I want. I'm 100% responsible at all times. To me, this was the ultimate power. I was not dependent upon the right president, the right policy in Washington, the right economy, the right weather, the right neighborhood, the right friends, the right peers, the right alumni. None of that had any bearing on how I could direct and captain my own life. Very powerful if you really get truly, like not just the idea I'm responsible, but you truly own that in every situation. So I'll give you an example. I was, a while back, I was sitting down with a friend of mine, and he was complaining about his wife, and he's like, she doesn't do this for me, and I wish she would do this, and she does this thing that annoys me. I'm like, dude, you got to stop. Your wife is amazing, and you're lucky that she puts up with you. And that was the truth. I said, let me just tell you something that I did in my relationship, and see if it might help out in this situation. So I'm a big Thanksgiving fan. Like everybody does Christmas and Christmas cards, I write Thanksgiving cards. I mean, it's just a great holiday. Food, family, appreciation, gratitude, not all the commercial gimmickry with it, right? Just awesome. So I write Thanksgiving cards to all my friends and family. One Thanksgiving Eve, I'd finished doing it. I had one more left to do, and it was the one for my wife. And we had a tiff earlier that day, and I wasn't feeling very thankful. So I was having a hard time with it. So I was struggling with it, and I thought, wait a minute, just back up here. Forget what just happened, and what do I really feel about her? What am I grateful for? What do I appreciate about her? And I wrote out this beautiful card, and I saved it for the next day. But the rest of that day, we had this amazing day. And I remember going to bed that night going, wow, what if I could do that every day? So I took this empty journal, and starting the next day on Thanksgiving, I secretly and privately just wrote down 1 or 2 or 3 things that I was grateful for about her that day. And I just did it in private. It took me 2 to 3 minutes a day. And I did it for the entire year. And then the next Thanksgiving, I wrapped it up, and I gave it to her as a gift. I know, that's what she said. No, clap. So, I appreciate it, but no. So she cried and said it was the best gift she's ever gotten, which was saying something because her birthday was 4 months earlier, and I'd given her a BMW. So I'm like, could have saved some money on this deal, right? So I told my friend, I said, why don't you just for 90 days, just privately write down 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for about her each day for 90 days. He said, okay, I'll do it. It wasn't 30 days later. He calls me. He's like, you wouldn't believe the transformation of my marriage. We've never been closer. We've never been more intimate. We've never talked and communicated. He said, I've never been more in love with my wife than I am right now. And I said, here's the interesting thing. She didn't change at all. The only thing that changed was what he was looking for. So instead of looking for all the things that she wasn't doing or that she was doing wrong, he was forcing himself to look for the things that she was doing right and that he loved and appreciated. And because he saw it, he felt it, he behaved differently, she responded to that behavior, and it what? Compounded into something totally different. He was the one that could totally be responsible for changing that relationship around, even though there was two people in the party. So I encourage you to do it as well. You can get, there's a gratitude assessment on thecompoundeffect.com/free if you so are inclined. So here's a homework assignment. Pick a frustration and keep a Thanksgiving journal for 21 days. Just try it. Between now and Thanksgiving, that would be awesome. Here we are, early November. Pick somebody and just each day, privately, write down 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for. Maybe get a card and just start writing in it so that at the end of the card, you'll have 21 days of gratitude accumulated for that person. Here's the key line. When you change how you look at a situation, the situation changes. All right, so what follows choices? Choices are the first line of code in the operating system. Next is behavior. If you do make a different decision, you make a different choice, now you got to get off the damn couch, out the front door, and make something happen. You have to turn choice into action. But here's the problem. That's the second line of code in the operating system. 3 surefire ways to change your behavior. The biggest challenge is this. 95% of all of our behavior is completely unconscious, which means you're not even making a choice about it. It's happening automatically. Remember when you're first learning to drive and you're like, okay, I got to put my hands at 2 and to 10 and 2, and then I've got to look at this mirror and this leg's got to do this, and this leg's got to do this, and then I got to adjust this, and then I got to use the foot for this pedal, and then I got to look out the windshield and avoid oncoming traffic. It seemed impossible. It's like, how could you do all these things simultaneously? Well, now today, you can drive down the freeway, have a conversation, talk on the phone, put your makeup on, shave, right? God forbid, text. You ever been driving down the freeway and you look up, you're like, holy crap, I'm like 3 exits past where I was supposed to get off. You're completely unconscious about it because it's become automatic. See, your brain is constantly trying to take what you do and make it automatic so you don't have to think about all the things you need to be doing simultaneously. So you are literally sleepwalking through all of your choices throughout the day. So the first thing to do is to become aware. Put a magnifying glass on what it are the behaviors that are taking you in the wrong direction. So I'll give you an example. So when I was I was 20, I was selling real estate, and I'd made a lot of money that year, and I was sitting down with my accountant, and he was going over the numbers, and I was waiting, and then he looked up with a big smile on his face, says, congratulations, you owe over $100,000 in taxes. And I said, what? I don't have $100,000 just lying around to pay my taxes. He said, well, why not? You earned several times that. Certainly you set aside the money to pay your taxes. And I said, does the exasperated look on my face make it evident that I did not? And then he stood up from his desk, and he pointed his finger at me, and he said, son, I've seen this 1,000 times. You continue on this current path, and you will dig your financial grave with your wallet. He said, you've got to get a grip. And he took his finger, and he put it on this small little notepad, and he slid it across the desk. And he said, I want you to write down every single penny that you spend for the next 30 days. He said, I don't care if it's 50 cents to fill the air in your tire or $2,000 on a new suit. Every time money comes out of your pocket, you write it down. I said, yes, sir. And that's what I did. And it wasn't but a week or two where you're taking friends out to drinks. You go to the counter when you're filling up gas and you're buying things at the concession. When I started to look at how money had just been pouring out of my pockets without me even noticing. And as a result of just starting to track how I was spending my money, I went from earning a lot of money and not having any to earning the same amount of money and having a lot of it by just adjusting the behavior on how I spent my money. So now I get asked all the time. I've bought and tried hundreds of thousands of dollars of personal development tools. Been in this industry for 20 years. Get sent them all. I get 25 copies of something every single week. This is the most powerful personal development tool there is, and it is a 50-cent notepad. And whatever it is that you want to change, just track it. And this is my go-to tool no matter what I want to change. If I want to change my diet, I write down everything that goes into my face. If I want to change my fitness, I write down everything I do exercise-wise. My wife's love language is appreciation. So I wanted to deepen the intimacy in our relationship, was one of my goals a year ago. And so I just, for 90 days, tracked down every time I did something that showed her appreciation or was an expression of gratitude. And I just tracked it. Here's what happens. I realized after a day or two, not much is going down. And then I'm conscious to try to get something down. So now I start doing the thing that actually is speaking to her love language. She responds to. Now all of a sudden there's deeper intimacy. It's as simple as that. But I promise you, the thing you think you're doing, if you don't actually take the physical effort of writing it down, you ain't doing. And you certainly aren't doing it consistent enough. Choose this as your tool. I'll tell you, it's transformational. So number one is awareness. By the way, there's a great story in the book about Kathleen, who used to work for me. She made $40,000 a year, put on a very, very simple plan. I mean, 1% savings at a time, and she's now a multi-millionaire. Fantastic story. Here's the next key. It's not what you need to do, behavior-wise, that's going to make the biggest difference. It's who you need to become. This was the second day that changed my life. It was the day that I met my mentor, Mr. Jim Rohn, November day, 1994. Back of the room of a seminar just like this, he stood on stage leaning over a lectern, and he said, how many people here want to have more? And I'm like some of you, I didn't raise my hand, right? But inside I was going, yeah, I want to have more. I want to have more money, have a bigger business, have a better body, what have you. And so I was ready to write down what he was going to tell me to do. Now, at that point, I'd had some success in my life, but I was doing it through brute force. I mean, just painstakingly out failing, out rejecting, just going for it and battered and bruised and bloodied. I couldn't do any more, but I was going to write it down and see what else I needed to do. Instead, he said, if you want to have more, you have to become more. And this was a twist of logic that I had not heard before. He said, success is not something you pursue. What you pursue eludes you. He says it could be kind of like chasing butterflies. He said, instead, success is something you attract by the person you become. Let me give you an example of this. So when I was late 20s, I was ready to be married. I was ready to find my mate. So it was a rainy 3-day weekend, and I sat down with an empty journal, kind of getting a theme of how I orchestrate my transformational moments, and I just wrote down everything I wanted in a woman. I mean, to great detail. What kind of family, what kind of culture, her tastes in food, where she wanted the vacation, down to the texture of her hair and the softness of her skin. 40 pages I wrote down. Right. And then I could hear Jim Rohn's voice in my head. What you pursue will elude you. Instead, it's who you need to become. So I took the rest of the weekend and wrote down the answers to a couple questions. The woman that sits on these 40 pages, what kind of man does she want? And then, who do I need to become in order to be worthy and attractive to the woman on the previous 40 pages? And I wrote down everything that I needed to become. And it took another 40 pages. And as a result of this, and I'm telling you, some of this stuff works, I don't know, I can't explain it scientifically, just some of it just works like magic. So I did end up writing, who do I need to become in order to be worthy of the woman on the previous 40 pages? And if she were peeled off the pages of my journal to almost crazy, scary details, is my beautiful wife, Georgia. I mean, as if she had come out of nowhere. So I can't explain how this works, but I'm just saying it works. So when you think about the kind of people that you want to do business with, what kind of clients you want, write down what kind of clients do you want in your business? And then ask yourself the opposite question. What kind of vendor, supplier, expert, or business do these kinds of clients want to do business with? And are you living that standard? What kind of people do you want working for you? Employees and staff. Write down all the qualities: positive, committed, disciplined, enthusiastic, passionate, loyal servant. And then ask yourself the opposite. What do these kind of people want to work for? And are you exemplifying each and every one of those attributes? There's the disconnect between what you want and who you are with the capability of actually achieving it. So homework assignment. Take each goal, write out who you need to become to accomplish them. Not what you need to do. Incidentally, who you need to become. And success will be attracted to you. And then start small. You don't need to go out and make giant leaps. You don't need to leave here and set the world on fire. Start small. Let me give you an example. I did a turnaround for this educational software company out of Waco, Texas, Creative Education Institute. And I had a woman there that worked for me. Her name was Beverly. And I entered a room where she was having a conversation with some of her other colleagues, and she was talking about a friend who was going to run a half marathon. And she said, oh, I wish I could run a half marathon, but there's no way. And I walked in the room. I said, Beverly, you could totally run a half marathon. Why not? And she had had 2 children, been 3 or 4 years since she had her child, and she had gained a lot of extra weight that she had not been able to part with. She says, oh, I could never do that. I get winded going up a small flight of stairs. I said, well, I know that you can, but let me ask you, why would you want to run a half marathon? She said, oh, well, my 20-year high school reunion is next fall. I would love to look fabulous for that. And I'm like, great, there's the motivation. If I can show you a plan where you could run a half marathon and never experience pain, a painless plan to run a half marathon, would you take me up on the challenge? She's like, there's no way I can run a half marathon without experiencing any pain. I said, is it a deal? She said, it's a deal. So here's what I had her do. I said, just map a 1-mile loop around your house with your car. Just drive it. And then walk it 3 times over the next 2 weeks. She did it. I said, now I want you to walk it 3 times a week for 2 weeks. No problem. Everybody can walk, right? No big deal. And then I said, now we just want to do a slow jog until you become breathless. As soon as you become breathless, just stop and walk the rest of the way. She got up to 1/4 of a mile. She got up to a half, 3/4. It took her 3 weeks to get up to 3/4 of a mile. Okay? Long time. Now, it was almost 2 months before she could run a single mile. Now, a lot of you are thinking, dude, half marathon is like 13 some odd miles. 1 mile ain't going to cut it. So here's what I had her do. I said, just increase 1/8 of a mile each time you go out. That's only 300 steps further than the last time. That's it. And so doing 300 steps further than the last time that she was already comfortable with doing, in 6 months, she was running 9 miles. And in 9 months, she was running 13.5 miles. This is Beverly today. She lost 50 pounds. She's run 4 full marathons. She couldn't go up a half a flight of stairs before. Now, just starting small. So whether you think you could run a full marathon or a half marathon or run 9 miles, each and every one of you could if you just do it small and incrementally over time. Behavior now then becomes habits. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where success is ultimately germinated. It is in your habits. That's the 3rd line of code in the operating system. Choices, a decision, acted on are behaviors, repeated consistently and disciplined over time are your habits. So what ends up happening is that these repeated behaviors end up burning a neurosignature in your brain. You know, your brain is gray matter. It's totally malleable. And you end up developing what are called brain grooves, the less technical term, which is the reason why you end up falling back into old habit patterns, because you actually have a brain groove that has developed a neurosignature for it. And so these habits, they start out like cobwebs, and then they become cables the more they're reinforced. So there's a story about an old Cherokee grandfather that has his grandson on his knee, and he's explaining that inside each of us there are 2 wolves. And he says to his grandson, one of the wolves is angry and bad and mean and lazy and vengeful and unforgiving. And then the other wolf is a good wolf, and it is disciplined and loving and forgiving and consistent. And the grandson looks up at his grandfather and says, well, which wolf is going to win? And the grandfather smiles and looked down and said, whichever you feed. And that is true about each and every one of you. Inside of you is a bad wolf and a good wolf. Lazy, undisciplined, inconsistent, and a good wolf that is passionate, energetic, consistent, and disciplined. And the one that's going to win this war, because they are always at war, is the one that you nourish the most. And every time you make a choice, you are nourishing one wolf or the other, and it is getting stronger and stronger based on how you nourish it. And here's the hard reality about habits. Good habits, they're hard to create, easy to lose. Meanwhile, bad habits are easy to create, hard to change. And when you try to uproot a bad habit, it could be like going through substance abuse withdrawal. It's difficult. It's painful. It can actually make you physically ill a lot of times, depending on how long you've been nurturing these bad habits. Because your habits is kind of like jumping into a river where the river is running in one direction. You could just jump in and not have to paddle at all and just be carried down the river. But if you try to change a bad habit, it could be like swimming upstream. With all your might and fortitude, you still might be standing still. It will be difficult. And here's the warning. It will take about 300 repetitions to weaken the neurosignature of your past habit and reburn in a new neurosignature of your good habit. So it will require a long-distance, consistent discipline. And willpower will not work. This is the reason why the diet industry has never been bigger in the history of humanity, but we've never been bigger in the history of humanity. We are more fat today than we have ever been, but there are more diet programs than there have ever been. What is the problem? They all rely on this, willpower, and willpower will not work. Here's what the FDA commissioner said. Focusing on not doing something eventually pushes us to do it more. Let's say you love chocolate cake. You love it. And let's say the only thing you can't have in your diet is chocolate cake. What are you thinking about all day long? Chocolate cake, which is the reason why when you're trying not to do something is the insatiable desire to do just that thing. So instead of willpower, let me give you an alternative. And it's what's called Y power. If I were to put a 300-foot steel beam across this stage here, and I said, I'll give anybody $20 if you just walk on top of this steel beam from one end to the other, how many people would take me up on my $20 offer? Yeah, it's easy $20, not a trick question. Now, what if I took this 300-foot steel beam and put it on top of two 100-story buildings? And I gave you $20 if you go from one end of the steel beam to the other. How many people would do it now? Now, what if on the other side of the building is your child, and the building is on fire, and the flames are licking at their neck, and if you don't go across that 300-foot steel beam, they will perish and die right before your eyes. How many people will go across that steel beam now? I did have one person in the audience say, which child? So I was like, that doesn't seem very friendly at all. Here's the interesting thing I want you to observe. The first time you said, no way, no how. Too dangerous, too much risk. I would never do that. The second time, your hands shot up, and I didn't even offer you $20. What's the difference? The reason why to do it is what changed. When your reason why is important enough, urgent enough, powerful enough, compelling enough, you will overcome almost anyhow, any danger, any risk to accomplish something. So the key lies in your discovery of what your urgent, important, and powerful why to achieve your goals are. I'll give you a more practical example. So Frank walks into the men's room, sees Bob at the toilet bowl, just finishing up, accidentally drops a $5 bill into the bowl. Frank's now interested to see what Bob's going to do. Bob pulls out his wallet, takes out a $50 bill, throws it in the bowl. Frank says, Bob, what are you doing? Bob looks back at Frank and says, oh, you didn't think I was going to go in there for just $5, did you? See, sometimes you got to make it worth it to do the dirty work necessary to accomplish your goals. You got to laugh a little harder than that, man. You're in the front row. You got to be supporting me here, all right? All right, so it is your reasons why. If anybody were to ask me any one skill that I would attribute any unusual success that I've had, is at that same seminar I met a mentor. He taught me a goal-achieving system that I've used for the past 20 years, which is the reason why I've been able to, in my opinion, to achieve what would seem like seemingly impossible goals. So it's how do you design it, and then an achievement system to help you stick with it along the way so that you get to the other end successful. And it was a few years ago, we published it into this book called Living Your Best Year Ever. But here's what it's like. If I were to offer you a briefcase of $1 million in cash, and I placed it on the back porch of some house here in Santa Clara, and I said, you can have it if you can find it. How long would it take for you to find that briefcase? You might wander your whole life and never find it. But what if I drew you a map to the back porch? How fast could you get there? Now, what if you're not familiar with the area, so I gave you a GPS system that guided you all along the way? How fast could you get there? That's the difference between having a goal achievement system and just having the idea that someday I want to be a millionaire. And it's on some back porch and you have no map to get there. The map is a goal achievement system that helps you get to the destination you're after. So, how do we uproot your bad habits and install the needed success habits? Inside the book, you can find five ways to uproot your bad habits and 7 ways to install the success habits. So I just want to refer to you that so we can keep marching forward. So let me let you leave with something so that you have how to build a success system. 3 ways. I call this my massive transformation formula. 3-step process. Number 1 is this. I don't care whether you have 10 goals, 100 goals, 1,000 things on your bucket list. It doesn't matter. You have to boil it down to your big 3. What are the 3 goals that if you accomplished over the next 12 months would make it the best year of your life? What are those 3 things? Like, okay, I've had a pretty great life, but if I did these 3 things, without question, would be the best year of my life. That's your big 3. As Jim Collins says, if you have more than 3 priorities, you probably don't have any. I say if you have more than 3 goals, you probably don't have any. Focus your attention on the 3 that matter the most that will get you furthest down the road. And then once you've got the goals, 2, what are the key behaviors necessary to accomplish each one of the goals? Let me give you an example. When I was in real estate, so first of all, there are not 5,000 things you need to do. When it comes to your behavior, there are not 5,000 key behaviors you need to become successful. It always boils down to about or less than a half dozen is all that's really necessary for you to accomplish any goal you've got in life. So I'll give you an example. When I was in real estate, there are 5,000 things you could delude yourself are necessary to be successful, right? I'll just read you some of those, right? So order the property report, set up the termite inspection, review appraisal, meet with the client to review reports, send disclosures, verify property report, get permit from the city, meet with the selling agent, organize files, review contract. These things sound like productive things you need to do as a real estate agent. But they are not. There are only 3 things that made the difference of why, if I did them, we got paid. Only I could do these things. I couldn't delegate. These are the things that I needed to do. And they were pitching a listing, negotiating a contract, and prospecting. Those were the 3 key behaviors for me to accomplish the goals that I had in real estate. And I became so dogmatic about isolating my time to these 3 key activities that I actually bought a stopwatch and I wore it around my neck. And whenever I was doing one of those 3 things, I would turn it on. And when I stopped doing one of those 3 things, I would turn it off. So if I were going door to door, door opens, on. Do you plan on buying or selling real estate in the next 6 months? Slam, off. Pick up the phone, ring, 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 on. Do you plan on buying or selling real estate in the next 6 months? Off. And I did that. But the first day I wanted to set the bar high, so I just went out like a savage. I probably worked 18 hours that day, and I didn't look at it the whole day, and I couldn't wait to the end of the day to turn it over and see how much time I had spent doing one of these 3 things. Guess how much time was on it the first day? 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I had worked like a beast for 18 hours, and I had 20 minutes on the clock. I promise you, if you take your key behaviors and you actually track the amount of time you're really spending doing one of those key behaviors, you will be shocked about how little time you're actually spending doing anything that actually matters. So it became my goal. I mean, I remember getting it to 40 minutes, which was Herculean. An hour. I got it up to 2 hours. We had a huge office-wide party. I spent a fortune because it was a gargantuan achievement. There was only about a half dozen times in my entire career, 4 years in real estate, where I actually got it up to 4 hours. This is, I mean, imagine, all you have to do is work 4 hours and you could create $500,000 income. I mean, that's all it really takes if you isolate your time to the things that actually matter. So number 1 is your goal, number 2 is your key behaviors, and then number 3 is tracking it. So let me show you a gyroscope system that you could use to track the achievement of your top 3 goals. This is what I call cashing out every day. When I was a teenager, I worked at a restaurant. And you would take an order, punch it into the computer, and then you would collect the cash or the credit card receipts. And at the end of this shift, you had to sit down with the manager and you had to cash out. And the cash and receipts needed to equal what you put into the computer. And if it didn't, you were in trouble. Shouldn't we all, to this stage of our lives, have to cash out every day of our lives? This is what I said I was going to do. Let's cash out and see whether I did it or not. So here's how to do it. This is what I call my weekly rhythm register. Single piece of paper becomes the dashboard or the gyroscope of your entire life. So let's say your top 3 goals are to increase your sales by 30%, lose 15 pounds, increase the intimacy in your relationship. The key behaviors are prospecting hours, sales appointments, exercise, water, expressions of appreciation, magic moments. Those are the key behaviors to accomplishing your top 3 goals. And then on Sunday you say, okay, I'm going to do these behaviors X number of times each. That's it. How many times am I going to prospect? How many hours am I going to prospect? How many sales appointments am I going to go on? How many times am I going to do 60 minutes of exercise? That's it. Sunday. And then throughout the week, you track it. Check, 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 check. That's it. Takes you less than 30 seconds at the end of each day. And then the following Sunday, review. Am I on track or am I off track? Where am I more off track than other places? So that you can readjust for the next week. What you don't want to do is to get too far down the month, the quarter, the year, the decade without checking on your trajectory. And that's what this page allows you to do. So if these are the 3 goals that are going to make it the best year of your life, these are the key behaviors that are going to make those goals a reality, all you got to do is keep track of it. On a single piece of paper, you can roll up your whole life. Simple as that. So you can download it for free, or it's inside that Living Your Best Year Ever program. So what's the last line of code in the operating system? What's left if you've started to make better choices, you've changed your behavior, you're repeating that behavior over time? The only thing that's left is time. The only thing that's left is your ability to allow discipline to compound into these massive results, the 8th wonder of the world. Let me give you your biggest pitfall. This is the big warning. If you've got everything that we've talked about thus far, this is where you will fall and fail. It also could be the reason why you end up becoming more successful than anybody else in this room. Here's what it is. Master the skill, you can win every time. It's not how fast you start. It's not how talented you are, how experienced you are, how much skill you've got. None of that actually matters. It's not how fast you start. At the beginning of a 10K, half marathon, it's crowded. All these people there are like, what the hell, all these people showing up? The further you go along in the race, the thinner it becomes. That's true in life as well. Monday morning, all you're going to be all fired up, and your blogs are going to be blowing up, and your Twitter and Facebook, and calls are going out, and everybody's going to be off to the start. Let's take this down 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now. There's only going to be a few that are still consistent with that effort. I'm going to blow through this here. So it's not how fast you start, it's how long you last. Consistency wins every single time. And then sustained consistency creates what I call big Mo. And that's what you want in life. This is this enigmatic force called momentum. And momentum is created through sustained consistency. It's kind of like, the big multi-ton steam trains. It takes an enormous amount of steam to get it to move 2 inches forward. An enormous amount of steam. Getting your life going 2 inches forward will take an enormous amount of steam. And if you put just a 2-inch block underneath its wheel, it won't go at all, no matter how much steam. But as soon as that train gains momentum, it can go through a steel reinforced concrete wall as if it were paper. That's what disciplined consistency over time, creating momentum. You've seen it. You've seen it in teams where they get Mo, and it's like they're unstoppable. They don't even know, and it's like, don't start questioning or figuring it out, just go with it. But it has to do with all the things that they did leading up to that point that broke them into momentum. Anybody read this new book by Jim Collins, Great by Choice? Let me save you the trouble. It's not that great. Here's basically the thesis. He analyzed the companies that went through the difficult financial crisis, and there were a dozen companies that grew 10 times, while other companies either collapsed, went out of business, or barely survived. What was the difference between the 10Xers and everybody else? They were not more risk-taking, they were not more bold, they were not more visionary, they were not more creative, they were not faster or luckier, was the conclusion. This is what they thought it would actually end up being. But the thesis of it was they were simply just more disciplined. They were simply just more consistent with their regular action, and they grew 10x when everybody else fell behind. All right, and the last piece I want to give you here is how to really crush it. If you want to accelerate this process in the slightest, here's the key to accelerating the compound effect. So I learned this when I first got started in real estate. As I told you, I started when I was 20 years of age. I went to a seminar, another theme. You're probably picking up here. And I got a chance to take the seminar leader out to lunch. And I sat there, 20 years old, I said, eager to learn. I said, what's the key to being successful? I asked the question, all of you asked me. I said, what's the key to being successful? And his answer was, go fail. I was like, dude, I thought the whole idea of success was avoiding failure. And he said, it's exactly the opposite. The thing you need to do to succeed is you need to go fail. And you need to go fail a lot. And then he gave me this line by the president of IBM, Thomas Watson, who said the key to success is massive failure. I mean, just think about that logically for a second, intellectually. The key to success is massive failure. And he could see that I still wasn't getting it. So he took a little napkin and he wrote out this analogy for me that I now pass on to you because it has meant huge victories in my own life personally. So he said, look, life is like a pendulum. And on one side of the pendulum is joy, love, happiness, victory, success. And on the other side of the pendulum is pain, rejection, sadness, and defeat. And he said, if you just stand still, you won't experience any defeat, pain, or sadness, but you also won't experience any joy, love, or happiness, and you'll have to live under a bridge. So here's what most people do. They find this little comfort zone, this little space where they become comfortable. They're only willing to experience so much pain, so much rejection, so much sadness, and thus the pendulum only swings in equal proportion on the other side of success, victory, and results. And they just sort of sit here wondering why they can't become more successful. And he said, the interesting thing is you can't push the pendulum on the side of success. He must have been to a Jim Rohn seminar. You can't push it on the side of success, but you can push it on the side of defeat, on the side of failure, on the side of rejection, which is the reason why you want to push the pendulum on the side of failure, rejection, and defeat as much as possible, because it works like a pendulum. It will swing on the other side. So I took it by sheer faith. And I went and I pushed the pendulum on the side of failure and rejection when I was in real estate. So 20 years of age, I had no business being in the business of real estate, trust me. But I said, where can I go get as much pain, rejection, fear, and sadness as fast as possible? So if you're in real estate, you know that there's this thing called expired listings. These are people who had their house on the market with another agent. It didn't sell. It comes up on the multiple listing services at 6 a.m. And 300 agents call the home immediately that morning. After about the third or fourth call, they're just pissed off. Lots of pain, rejection, and sadness to be had there. Then when you're done with all those, you end up calling on for sale by owners. These are people who hate realtors so much they wouldn't even think of listing with a realtor. Knock on those doors, lots of pain, rejection, and sadness to be had there. When I was done with that, I would just take my car, park it at the end of the block in a white shirt and a tie, go door to door. Like, people love that, right? So I'd knock on the door. Do you plan on buying or selling real estate? Slam, kids throwing rocks at you from across the street. I would take a little notepad, 50 check marks on it. And I wouldn't allow myself to get back in the car until I had all check marks on the pad. So now every time somebody rejected me, I was delighted. Why? It was one check mark closer to getting back in the damn car and being done with it. And then I'd go home and it was 5 to 9 is money time. Right? That's when you can catch people at home because they're in the middle of dinner. So you cold call them, right? Lots of pain and rejection and sadness to be had there. And I would strap myself, glass of water, not allow myself to get up, and I had to get 50 check marks there before I'd allow myself to get done. I pushed the pendulum so far on the side of pain, rejection, and sadness, it was incredible. It also swung in equal proportion on the other side. In 90 days, 20 years of age, it was an office of 44 agents. I was outselling the entire office combined. There were more listings and more escrows than the entire office combined. Now, I don't say that to say anything about me. I say it to say about this principle. When you can take this idea of failure and fear and not just embrace it or accept it as part of the process, but actually love it, like go after it, like seek it, it's powerful. The floodgates come off. Not to be crude, but just to give you an example. When I was single, I used this principle. So you go into a bar with a few buddies. The last thing a buddy wants to do is get blown away by a girl in front of his buddies, right? So everybody's like hanging on the board, testing it out with a look. I'd go in and say, I'm going to get 10 no's and then I'm out of here. And I'd walk in and be like, hey, what do you think? Just trying to get a number here, right? And no. And it's like just getting blown out and rejected, and I'm getting fired up, and then you finally get, it's like, oh yeah, I got one. Victory. I mean, instead of shirking from it, instead of trying to be tentative, right, about it, when you actually go and seek it, all the power that failure, rejection, and defeat has is gone. And now you actually own all the power. I mean, this is a powerful concept. So it ends up becoming a new comfort zone. So to this day, if I ever get to the end of the month and I did not experience some defeat, some rejection, some embarrassment, some sadness along the way, I am mad at myself. Why? Because I want more success. What's the key to it? Thomas Watson told you. What is it? Massive failure. So if I'm not failing, I'm not swinging the pendulum to greater success. I encourage you to do the same thing. Take your goals, instead of the number of yes clients you can get, turn them into the number of clients you can get to say no. Right? Instead of the number of sales you make, the number of people that you get in front of that reject you. Like, start quantifying that number and seek it out, and the power of trying to accept that as part of the process will dissipate, and you will come out on top. It's a powerful concept. Learn to love failure. And once you embrace that as part of your power, I'm telling you, Katie, bar the door. I got a chance to spend time with Michael Jordan, and this is what he said about, I said, what is the key to your success? Why do you think you were a greater player than anybody in your time, maybe ever? And this was his answer, and I'll show you through a video of what he said.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
The key to his success was his ability to accept and pursue failure. To be dependent upon, to take the game-winning shot, and to miss was the key to his great success. It is the key to your great success as well. Celebrate your failures. Track your rejections. Add up and declare your defeats, because when you actually seek that as part of your metric for your progress, it will become your great power. Here's another fantastic failure. I mean, this guy has done some public doozies, right? He had dyslexia. Remember Virgin Cola, where he came out on a tank on Madison Avenue? He was going to take over the cola industry? Failure. Or how about Virgin Brides, where he dressed in drag to launch that company? That company is no longer. Virgin Cinemas, Virgin Cosmetic, Virgin Vodkas, all these companies have failed. Yet, this is his motto. Screw it, let's do it. If you fall flat on your face, pick yourself up again. That's why he has 400 companies and he's worth more than $4 billion. Here's what Richard Branson has done more than you. He has failed more than you. The difference between he and the rest of us is he is willing and he does it with great glee, and that is to fail more often than the rest of us. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, do something every day that scares you. This is a metric I actually track in my journal before I go to bed. Did I do something today that scared me? So that tomorrow I think about, what can I do today that scares me? Track it. I promise you, you'll become addicted to it. It's like, oh, I got to do that thing that scares me. So instead of being like, oh, I had this shitty thing happen to me today, it's like, oh, you won't believe it, man. Oh, I did this thing, I thought it was going to be awesome. I just got totally blown out. It was awesome, right? And because you do that, you increase your chances of something incredible happening on the other side of the equation. I remember when I was 8 years old, we were skiing in Heavenly Valley up in Tahoe. And it has that big, they had part of the Olympics there, the gun barrel that comes down the face of it. Well, I skied that, and I'd skied by myself all day. I couldn't wait to tell my dad. I said, Dad, I skied by myself all day long, and I didn't fall down one time. And he looked at me and he said, well, then you didn't get any better. And I was like, what do you mean? And he could tell that I was not getting it. And he said, look, if you don't push yourself, you don't find out where the boundaries of your current skill level are, and you don't fall, you don't get any better. And I've used that philosophy, and this is the one we had painted in big black letters in our garage wall, which was no pain, no gain. And so constantly in life, whether I'm working out, whether I'm pursuing business objectives, I'm looking for the pain. Because where there's the pain is where there is the gain. And since I started out with the story of my father, I'll end it with his final philosophy. My dad passed away a few months ago of bone cancer, and I did his eulogy. And this is the philosophy that sort of sticks with me and lives in me and is, I think, exemplified, that's carrying on his legacy. He said, no matter how talented, experienced, or privileged somebody else is, you can beat anybody at anything. You can accomplish any goal you set your sights on over time. If you are just more consistent than everybody else around you, you will win every race that you run. And so with that, I wish for you to win every race that you run to the point where maybe one day your picture is inside the pages of Success Magazine. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.